Welcome back to Fantasy Football School with the Tartan Touchdown. We are going to keep talking through who are the studs, the staples, and the sleepers of your fantasy football draft. Where should you be looking to pick these players up? Where are you going to get the value that is going to mean you are going to win your fantasy league? Let's move this on to the most interesting position in fantasy, wide receivers. Now, we have actually been, as a three, we suck so bad, by the way, because for our stud picks, we have picked wide receivers 1, 2, and 3. It's like nothing kind of cute or interesting to be found here. So in that name, we are going to go in order, which means we're starting with Stu. Tell us why everyone loves Ja'Marr Chase.
Yeah. So obviously another homer pick, but Triple Crown winner from last year. The guy was an absolute monster, for the Bengals offense, and had to be to keep us relevant and keep us in that hunt for that playoff game, or for the playoffs last season. I fully expect him to be up there in the top 3 receivers again this year. Whether he, don't know if he does the Triple Crown again. I think maybe a double winner, 2 years in a row. I think this happened, maybe 5 or 6 times in history, Dan, I want to say.
Not often.
It's not happened since, I think, maybe in the 90s since the last time I had.
Oh my
God. Find that out, right?
Don't worry, I'll figure it out. You tell us about why Chase is amazing.
Very nice, probably.
But yeah, if you look at him though from last season though, he was WR1 by a long distance. I love Justin Jefferson as well. I think he's an absolutely quality player, and he should be up there too. And I considered him as my choice because I thought maybe I can't go homer every pick, but I just looked at it and went, okay, well, Ja'Marr put up 1,700 yards. Jefferson was 1,500. 17 TDs as well. He does sometimes get the odd, didn't do it last year, but he does sometimes get the odd rushing TD too, because we do sometimes love handing Ja'Marr the ball behind the line of scrimmage. Just the amount of targets, the amount of receptions he gets, and just that yards after catch. He's an absolute monster, so he's going to put up points for you every single week, regardless of opposition. Look what he did to the Ravens. Every time he plays the Ravens, it's pretty much I'm going to go for 150 to 250 yards, and away he goes. So, Ja'Marr Chase, love him.
Right, okay. We do all love Ja'Marr. There's a reason that he's kind of the leading consensus 101 in most fantasy leagues. There has been one player in NFL history who has ever done back-to-back receiving triple crowns. And I'm sure this guy's right on the tip of your tongue, as it was Don Hutson who managed to do it not once back-to-back, but 4 times in a row from 1941 to 1944. You know what I mean? Aye. So, yeah. Doesn't happen often. Right.
Who's Hudson on, Brian?
Oh, it didn't tell me, I'll be honest. I read that quickly. I went, right, he won it a 5th time. He won it in 1936 as well. So there you go. My pick for this is the 2nd ranked wide receiver in all of fantasy. It is Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings. He is incredible. My bigger take with JJ at the minute, because the worry with JJ is, oh my God, he has a new quarterback throwing him the ball. This guy's, for all intents and purposes, he's a rookie. Yes, I know it's not his rookie year, but yeah, he's all intents and purposes a rookie throwing the ball. I'm sorry, I am all in on believing in Minnesota as an organisation. Looking at the offensive line, looking at not just Jefferson, but looking at Addison across from him, Hawkinson there. You've got so many good weapons, and you've got such incredible coaching, which, as we've seen last year, somehow made Sam Darnold relevant. So for me, it's JJ. Do I think that he's the number 1 receiver come the end of the year? Absolutely could be. Yep. I genuinely think any of the 3 guys that we're going to talk about, it's a coin flip. Any of them could be number 1. Completely depends on how their team's year shakes out. Chase, just to stick this boot in again, Chase maybe stands a slightly better chance because the Vikings have a defense. They have a defense and they can stop just throwing the ball. But Yeah, JJ, he's incredible. We watch him every year. He's one of the most electric players in the league to watch. His contested catches and all the rest are utterly incredible to see come out. So yeah, for me, he's wide receiver 2 off the board. He's the consensus ADP 103. You know what I mean? So you might find somebody grab sort of running back in the middle, but he's it doesn't matter where you pick him, he's incredible. Right, Dan, let's round this one off and then we'll start talking about interesting wide receivers that we might disagree on.
Right, so I'm going to my first homer pick of the evening. It's CD Lamb.
Yep.
He just, we need that breakout year. We can now see what CD Lamb can actually do. We're just waiting. Eventually had that breakout year, and he just elevated his game. What I think is going to make a massive difference to CD Lamb this year is us having a wide receiver 2. George Pickens, we know he's not consistent, and he's not been probably in the best situation he's been in. But he will take a bit of the attention away from CD Lamb, which will stop DC's scheming towards him as much as they would have. Because when it was Jonathan Mingo on one side and CD Lamb last year, everybody knew that he could just leave Jonathan Mingo to do it when he wanted because he would get lost in the
I wonder who the receiving threat is.
Whereas now having Pickens in, and then Jake Ferguson having another year under his belt as well, we've got a few options now that it's not just everything's going to get forced to CD Lamb. So that might take a bit of the coverage, a bit of attention away from him, which will allow Dak to find them a wee bit more. We know they have got that connection. So like Bryce, as a flip between which one of those three could get top wide receiver this year. Last year, I opted against CD Lamb and I went for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I am not making the same mistake this year. If I can get CD Lamb in any of my leagues round about, that's 5 or 6, he's getting picked.
It's again, you just look at the amount of work that Lamb's doing. I think you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, Lamb had a disappointing, air quotes, year last year because he had no quarterback. Like, he had no QB for huge chunks of these. So yeah, of course he had a down year. But he's an incredible player. Love watching him as well. With all 3 of these guys, you could just close your eyes and spin and you'll pick up wide receiver 1 out of them. And it's absolutely going to be the case. But yeah, so for the sake of finishing that bit off, yeah, Lamb, he is a wide receiver 3. He is a little deeper in your drafts. He tends to be coming off the board around about the 106, which is interestingly where I'm drafting. So we'll see where he lands in your fantasy teams. He is someone that you leave with him as your wide receiver 1. You are a happy person. Now, as I said, we were terribly boring there, chaps. Terribly dull. But we're going to move into something where we're a wee bit more spread out and we've got a little bit more variation. And a couple of wide receivers that I have got some concerns, chaps. I have some concerns with some of your selections. So, Stu, we'll start with yourself. And I do have concerns here, and I feel like such a terrible person for having concerns. It makes me feel like a bad person. Talk to us about your staple quarterback. And this is possibly the epitome of consistent quarterback, wide receiver. Consistent wide receivers. This is possibly the most consistent wide receiver the world has ever known. Take it away.
Yeah, I am going with one of the most consistent players in the NFL in general, even outside of wide receiver. I'm going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Evans, who every year puts up 1,000 yards receiving at least. I think even last time having some injuries, kind of thing, and away he went, and he's getting the ball thrown to him by none other than your favourite NFL player, Baker Mayfield. He's in like a good offense. Tampa Bay just seems to do their thing every single year. They're in a weaker division. They make the playoffs. They've obviously won the Super Bowl a few years ago with Tom Brady and all that. They don't really seem to have fallen off as hard as everybody thought, and they actually seem to have managed the exceedingly rare mini rebuild and are all kind of sort of in contention. I'm not saying I'm not saying they're a Super Bowl favourite or anything like that, but I look at their team and go, defence is good, O-line's good, there's weapons, and they have a more than serviceable quarterback. So I look at that team and go, you know what, they're set up for success. Mike Evans, yeah, I know he's getting a little bit older, and that's maybe where your concerns start.
Yep.
And the durability might start coming into a question, but I just kind of look at him and go, you know what, like for where he's getting drafted, I still see it as value. I think so you're usually getting them like third, fourth round, like end of the third, going into the middle of the fourth is where you're going to pick them up. And I look at him as like, well, even if you go running back, or running back quarterback for your first 2 rounds, he's a pretty good guy to have as your WR1. But if you've already went wide receiver, why not spend on him to be your WR2?
I think if he's my WR2, I'm okay. I'm comfortable enough with Mike Evans. He's coming off the board. He's wide receiver 18, start of the 4th. That's my, if I'm picking first overall, and I did these. I went Chase, then maybe I went quarterback, running back, and then I'm going Mike Evans. I'm happy enough with that. If he's my wide receiver 1, I don't. He's going to not put up 1,000 yards at one point, and I just really have the fear that we're starting to see it. The one thing I will say is that this is the last year of his deal in Tampa Bay. So, and there's big worries that whether or not Tampa Bay can actually afford to keep him after this, particularly given what they paid Chris Godwin. So there is a big thought that he's going to put, is he going to try and put himself in the window to get a final payday somewhere else before he kind of sees out the tail end of his career? I'm just getting a worry that Mike Evans, this might be the decline, might start. I don't know. I feel like a bad person saying it, but because everyone loves Mike Evans, because he's just so consistent. He's like what everyone wants in their wide receivers. On the notion of wide receivers that everyone loves, I'm going to come in with mine. Marvin Harrison Jr., the wide receiver who stung so many people last year in fantasy. So many people. But I've got a bit of faith in Arizona. I do think they're not a bad team. I think they should have done better than they did last year. But I also think that he's went to a lot of effort. He's put on weight. He's got bigger, which I think that's going to be a big thing for him. It's going to make him more durable in those contested catches. It's going to give him the opportunity to go up and bring the ball down more consistently. And yeah, I would like to think that, Kyler's going to be back and he's going to be playing better than he played last year. I'm just trying to quickly check Kyler. His yardages throughout the year, his air yardages weren't great until after the bye. So hopefully we pick that up more and you see Marvin Harrison Jr. getting a little bit more opportunity. It's not they're going to try and keep pretending that Michael Wilson is really the lead threat in this offense. Well, Trey McBride does exist. For me, I don't know what your two takes on Marvin. Well, do you know what, Dan? We'll give you this one before you talk about your wide receiver. Marvin Harrison Jr. is wide receiver 17. Mike Evans is wide receiver 18. 311, 401. You are at the 312. They're both on the board. Who would you plump for?
For 312, you're on the turns. You're taking both. I think I'm taking Mike Evans all day. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., like you say, bumped so many people last year. The expectation on him last year was huge. I do like the fact that Stu picked Kyler Murray as a sleeper quarterback, but there's the point. He's a sleeper quarterback. You don't know what you're going to get with him. He's got a lot of upsides, but yeah, with Trey McBride being there as well, it gives me concerns that Trey McBride is going to be the guy that gets the most receptions on that offense. Marvin Harrison Jr. will get you points, he'll get you touchdowns. Would I pick him over someone like Mike Evans? Would I pick him over people that are going to be round about there? Who else have we got there? Terry McLaurin, Rashee Rice. Nah, I don't think so. I think I'd take Mike Evans over him.
Right, I'd be taking MSG over all of them. Anyway, right, on to yours. I've got one concern with your player, and it's only one concern, and it's actually a player who every mock I have done, more or less, has fallen to me, and I don't actually think I've drafted him once. But go for it.
So this guy is stable. He had a good season last year, and he is the only wide receiver on his team. So we're talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. being the only wide receiver on his team. Ladd McConkey is the only person in the Chargers building that can catch a ball. So he is like him.
I'm the only receiver. It's the only one who can actually catch at all.
We've seen the Chargers rip it up last year, like when Harbaugh went in, they just ripped the team apart, and suddenly they didn't have a wide receiver. They literally, so they drafted McConkey, and he went in there and he had a good season. What did we get? 1,346 yards, 8 touchdowns, averaging nearly 15 yards a catch. So he's someone that's going to get you a lot of value. He's I think it was technically 22. I think that's the tail end of the second. There's a lot of wide receivers up there, but this is going to be, if you're someone who's taken one of those elite running backs in the first round, you're going to need someone at the tail end of the second round that's going to get you those yards. And I think he's one of the people who will do that because there's no one else that Justin Herbert's got to throw to. We mentioned Justin Herbert earlier on. He's going to throw the ball up and he's going to get the ball to him. Trey Harris is there as well. Yeah, I'm not going to count Quentin Johnson because I don't know what he's going to be like.
Quentin Johnson.
Yeah, Trey Harris.
Everyone's favourite receiver.
I actually think Trey Harris will come in and be wide receiver 2 for the Chargers this year. Jalen Reagor never really done much with the Eagles. So, yeah, I think Ladd McConkey, if you can get him at the tail end, if you've picked running back in the first round, or you want to go double wide receiver first round, second round, McConkey's going to be a good pick at that kind of mid to tail end of the second round.
My worry with McConkey, well, it's a double-headed worry. It's the same kind of thing though. One, he is the only receiver in that team, and he is not CeeDee Lamb. He is not somebody that I think can, because now we know who he is. DCs know that he's a capable receiver. I don't think you're going to get a year where we're going to find out if he can cope with all the double coverage that's been thrown at him, because it's all he's going to see all year is double coverage. Unless Trey Harris really, really steps in straight away and shows that he's got a lot to him, which he could. Trey Harris absolutely could do that. He could be that guy. I worry that McConkey is going to be basically schemed out of games, is my worry with him.
I'm going to pull a Brian on you here. Right? So, looking at projections, ADP for this year, Ladd McConkey, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyreek Hill, all three of them are 22 to 26. Who are you taking out of 3 of them?
Oh, JSN, and I hate it. JSN and I really dislike it. Because I do think I love an upside swing, just not at that draft point. Tyreek Hill's, if you get Tyreek, then you've just won your league. Now, if you get Tyreek in there at the start of the 3rd round, that's incredible value. But I don't think we see Tyreek again. I think Tyreek is not done, but I don't think he's going to be the cheater. JSN, I just think is going to give you the best return in that draft position. That's my call. I'll put my colours to the mast.
Stu?
I do like JSN quite a lot, but Brian, I think I'm going with Dan on this one. I think I'm going Ladd McConkey. Purely because Justin Herbert is such a weapon, and I even looked at taking him as my staple rather than Kyler Murray in there too. But I just was like, you know what, I'm going with the rushing upside and taking Kyler Murray. Nothing, but I just look at it and go, okay, the Chargers, they've got an amazing defence. I feel like this year with bringing Trey Harris in, and we'll see what Najee Harris does as running back and that as well. I just think that this will be the year when they start building a bit of offense too. So I'd be going Ladd McConkey at this point, just because he's going to get the targets and the volume. And he looked good last year.
Right. Everybody disagrees with me, so we're going to keep that theme rolling, because everybody's going to keep disagreeing with my sleeper pick. Because I'm enjoying the theme of wide receivers who brutally burned the fantasy managers that picked them up. So my deep wide receiver. To be fair, actually, you two have both done better at your homework than me. You two have both went for a deeper wide receiver. But my deep wide receiver is wide receiver 45 off the board. He is the wide receiver, allegedly. Wide receiver 1 on his team. You're picking him up at the start of the 9th. It's Jaden Reed on the Green Bay Packers. And he has shown that when he plays really, really well, he will drop 39 points on someone. He's then shown for the remaining games of the season he will drop 4. But if the Packers could please, because the Packers are a good offense. The Packers have got weapons. I like Love as well. He's a good quarterback. If they could simply decide that Jaden Reed actually is their wide receiver one, and they don't have some amalgam of like 6 wide receivers who are all wide receiver one, it would make me so much happier. But on the notion that this is a sleeper pick, and I'm looking for a player that's deep that I think has got the upside to become a top 12 finish. Jayden Reed, for me, has got that upside. He is the guy that you turn around and tell me, yeah, Jayden Reed finished as wide receiver 7 in the year. I wouldn't be that shocked. I wouldn't be that surprised. Just went, oh, they just dialed in on him for more than 4 games. I don't know. Where do these land in the mess that is the Green Bay wide receiver core?
I think they probably would have, Brian, you mentioned there, is they have too many weapons, right? They have too many wide receivers for him to become. And a classic example of this, if you look at, you've got it in front of yourself now, if you look at Sleeper, Jayden Reed's going as the 100th pick. Going at 101 is Matthew Golden, his teammate. This is the problem. The Packers have too many wide receivers. They're all good wide receivers, and they could all be WR1s, but they spread it out, and that's why none of them ever are that elite level of points, because they spread it out so that they all eat and they all get the points, and that's exactly a pitting of it. Jayden Reed 100, Matthew Golden 101 is Sleeper.
I mean, it's maybe one of those situations where, like, for the Green Bay Packers, for real life, it's a great wide receiver room. Like, why would they want to do anything different? Like, for Jordan Love, like, can pick and choose kind of thing, depending on the scenario, like who's hot, who's not, kind of thing, and off he goes. It's just for fantasy for us and everybody else.
Us, the important people.
Must pick one, guys. Just before I forget, Brian, on the Green Bay Packers note, when you were talking about Hudson earlier, I looked this up earlier on, just as a good point to bring it up.
Nice.
He played for the Green Bay Packers. That was the team he was with. Played there his whole 11-year career, never went anywhere else. This was also the era, though, where players played both ways. Much like a guy who hasn't been brought up yet. Travis Hunter. I don't know if he will be brought up. Anywho, he played both ways. He was a safety, and also in one of those years, 1940, he led the league in interceptions. So not only was a guy, he was a multiple Triple Crown winner, he was also the best safety in the league at one point, or at least the best ball hawk in the league at one point.
What this clearly means is that taking Jayden Reed is an absolute value, because Green Bay has historically produced such incredible wide receiving threats. Well, we'll go up this one in order to the deepest wide receiver. Stu's got the honour of having the deepest wide receiver selected. So we went for wide receiver 45, which was Jayden Reed, my pick for a sleeper candidate. Dan, you want to take us away with your suggestion at wide receiver 63? You're picking this guy up, and at the end of the 14th round, he's basically free.
Yes. Stu mentioned Mike Evans earlier on, who's we know is the receiver number 1 in Tampa, but someone I think is someone to kind of stash maybe for the season as goes on, in case Mike Evans falls off, he gets injured. We know Chris Godwin's got a few injuries, stuff like that. It's Jalen McMillan. I think he's a good sleeper to have. I had him, he basically sat in my bench last year. He kind of came on at the end of the season, he kind of came on a bit of a game, got touches. 8 touchdowns last year off for 502 yards, averaging 13 yards a catch as well. So, I mean, if you're getting 8 touchdowns off of 502 yards, you're doing something right. So if you can keep that kind of level up, then I think he's a good stash to have on your bench. If you're picking him up in the last couple of rounds of your draft, or even potentially waiver wire week 1, week 2 if you get an injury, I think he's a great sleeper pick to have.
Yeah, he's a great grab. You look at him particularly from week 14 on. Last year, he had a run where he was picking up touchdowns like they were going out of fashion.
Yep.
And if he does develop that rapport with Baker, where he becomes that kind of big red zone target, it's absolutely a huge value here. Huge value. And picking up bits of the Tampa Bay offense.
Jump back, I just realised I actually made it sound worse than it was. He actually had 8 touchdowns off of 39 receptions. He had a touchdown every 5 catches. For someone who is a wide receiver 4 or 5 within that room, a touchdown catch on every 5 catches that he made last season.
Absolutely brilliant end of the season for him. Right, Stu, let's round these wide receivers off. You have went the deepest, sir, with a name that everyone knows. At wide receiver 70, you are getting him for free. It's his 16th round.
And it's, I get that, this player, I get that he's older now and he's not what he once was, but I'm absolutely shocked how late he is, like, ranked and how late he's been drafted. So I'm going with DeAndre Hopkins. And I look at him and I go, okay, the guy is like formerly one of the best wide receivers in the league. Yes, I know he's getting older, but he's on the Baltimore Ravens. It's not like he's playing for the New York Giants or something like that and he's seeing out his career. Like, kind of like playing with a journeyman quarterback. He's playing with Lamar Jackson. And then when I look at I'm looking at the Ravens depth chart here, kind of thing. So you've got obviously tight end. You have Mark Andrews, who, let's face it, is also getting older. And as much as he was still like a decent target when he was healthy, there was some noticeable drops that weren't part of Mark Andrews' game for last year. So I look at him as a player going like, is he starting to fall off the cliff? Then you see you've got so WR2 for the Ravens, Rashad Bateman. Again, he's shown flashes, but he's not been absolutely electric so far. Then Zay Flowers, another guy that a lot of people kind of were high on in drafts the last few years. He gets taken probably earlier than he should be. And again, he doesn't always give you what you want from him every week. So I just look at it and go, you know what, there's opportunity here for DeAndre Hopkins. And he is classed as a WR1, at least for now, on the Ravens depth chart. And when I see him going, if I can grab him in the last round of the draft or, in one of those last 3 rounds, of course I'm going to bet on D-Hop. Like, if he doesn't do well, oh well, off the waivers with you and I'll grab somebody else. And I think to fill in. He cost me nothing.
He's a great shout purely for that reason. He's such incredible value. And there is, because the decline of Mark Andrews, I think, is actually the biggest thing here. Because Mark Andrews' big strength is that Mark Andrews is just a huge human being. And he's just a huge human being in the red zone that you can throw a ball vaguely in his vicinity. And historically, that's just meant touchdowns. Not at the minute, not as much. He saved his season with touchdowns, which, he does that. But if that decline continues, D-Hop could fill that role. D-Hop's similar kind of thing. He's got a huge wingspan. He's great at bringing the ball in. Yeah, good, easy B. Yeah. Right. Guys, I hate to say it, but we have actually done it again and we've been really bold again. We're into tight ends. It is a final position group that we're hitting. And yet again, we've went 1, 2, 3. This time, we'll do it the same way. It's putting you back into the floor, mate. It's a tight end that he is tight end 1 off the board for a very good blooming reason. And he's a tight end I actually think is undervalued at the 203, which is a hell of a statement. Take it away, mate. Tell us who you're thinking of.
Yeah, so I'm going with, you probably all guessed it, I'm going with Brock Bowers from the Las Vegas Raiders. For me, I'll look at him and I think he's a tight end stud, TE1 last year, can easily do that again this year, especially now that he has Geno Smith, who we've talked about earlier, completely reasonable quarterback, maybe not the best in the league, but he's at least average enough and he's going to get the ball to Brock Bowers. And I just also look at Brock Bowers and go, he's exactly for his draft position, like you said there, early in the second, that is the ideal guy to take on the turn. Whether you go WR, RB, or if you go early on Josh Allen, why not take your tight end kind of there as well? You've taken 2 of the the main position groups, and Brock Bowers, if you look at what he did last season and the fantasy points he put up, I think he was tight end 1 and
he was.
On my chart, I've got it. He put up, not a huge amount more than George Kittle, but he's like 10, 11 points more. And once you go beyond these 3 tight ends that we're going to kind of mention here, there's a big, big drop off to the next tier kind of thing. So if you have a chance at grabbing one of these 3 guys we mentioned, you should probably do it. And for me, it's Brock Bowers as the guy I'm going to take first, especially if I'm on the turn.
Yep. And for the sake of just when we talk about last year, having Brock Bowers in your team was the same as having another RB1. But that's what that meant. You had Brock Bowers, you were getting RB1 production out of your tight end spot. That's the money can't buy that. Dan, you have got the second highest ranked tight end on the board. He's tight end 2, obviously. He's coming at the end of the second, though, so incredible value.
Yeah, there's not a chance in any league that I know I am in that this guy goes at the end of the second. He's going way before it.
Yeah,
Jay McBride. There's no way you're getting Jake Bride at the end of the second in any draft that you're in. If you're sitting, even at the turn, because Brock Bowers will go either at the top end of the turn or the bottom end of the turn. If Brock Bowers is off the table, take Trey McBride. So if you've got a wide receiver already, you've got your running back, and Josh Allen's gone as well. Josh Allen's, that's a tough one to go with. But if Trey McBride is there and you've got your wide receiver, you've got your running back, at that point in your draft, you're probably like, if you've got your running back, top wide receivers will be gone. If you've got your wide receiver, the top running backs will be gone by the time you get to that. Trey McBride's your pick. For me, 111 receptions last year, the most on that Cardinals offense. The next most was Marvin Harrison Jr. as Brian picked with 62. He had almost 50 but catches more than his WR1 last season, and he finished with 1,146 yards. The only thing last year, and this blew my mind, he only got 2 touchdowns last year. Well, I remember there was that run where, like, why is Trey McBride still not scored a touchdown yet?
So this is my right. For clarity, I am all in on Trey McBride. I completely agree. My one worry wasn't last year. Trey McBride has been in the league for 3 years and he has 6 touchdowns total. We might just need to live with the universe that Trey McBride, he is an absolute target hog. He's a receptions king and he's going to get yardage. Might just not be the red zone guy. Might just not in that.
I think premium and PPR league, that's what you need.
Yeah, there we're talking. What is our main league? Tight end premium. Yeah, I am so on board with Trey McBride. It's my only worry. My only worry is that what if those touchdowns don't come? But he is the poster child candidate for positive touchdown regression. You just expect him to get more because averages say so. And you don't disagree with maths. Right, on to mine, who somehow actually does right now at his ADP represent ludicrous value. It is the tight end 3 off the board, but somehow, according to ADP, he's around in the 4th. It's George Kittle. He is credible value. He is a known asset. We know what George Kittle does. The biggest thing for me right now is George Kittle, unfortunately, is a very good pass blocker. So when you have the San Francisco 49ers with lots of receiving weapons, George Kittle kind of fades away into nothing because they just tell him to go pass block. Unfortunately, right now, the San Francisco 49ers have, I don't know, I'm waiting for a phone call to see if I'm getting any snaps at wide receiver this year. They are that thin. Everyone is hurt. Juwan Jennings isn't hurt. He's just demanding a trade or a new contract. Ricky Pearsall is hurt. He's on PUP at the minute. Brandon Ayuk is coming back from having no knees. So who knows when he's going to be back. If, as it looks very, very likely, the Niners don't have many of the receiving weapons, you are just going to watch George Kittle eat targets on a good offense. Because, again, we talked about it earlier with Dallas, and you can't stack the box against them. You can stack the box against San Francisco if you want. Christian McCaffrey will just run straight through it. Doesn't matter to him if the box is stacked. He'll run over it until his knees explode. So, yeah, for me, my stud pick is George Kittle. I will be having all of the fantasy shares of George Kittle at that price. That is an absolute steal. To be. Imagine you have got George Kittle, you have got 2 stud wide receivers and a high tier running back all in your team by the 4th round. It's incredible value. Moving on this now, do you know what, Stu? Oh, go.
You're going to say this before we move on to sleepers, or you go before we move on to sleepers?
No, move on to staples because Stu has to keep himself accountable for his outrageous pick.
I just as well, I didn't say that because he might be in there, so I better not say anything.
Right, okay. So, Stu, you need to justify yourself because you have picked a staple tight end who I have once in my entire fantasy career, I have once managed to pull off a quarterback receiver of any nature stack in a league. Once I've done it, and it was last year, and it was with the tight end that you were about to try and sell me as a staple tight end who underperformed so ridiculously badly, I cut him by about week 8. So, Stuart, justify your choice with for the numbers. He's tight end 13 off the board. You are getting him in the 10th, to be fair. On you go.
You know what? Like, okay, so the guy I'm selecting, first off, I just looked at him and I've drafted him multiple times, and I get what you're saying. He did burn you last year. I've went with Dalton Kincaid from the Buffalo Bills. I know that there are maybe sexier options out there as staples. And what's hilarious is when we get to sleepers, the guy I've picked as a sleeper scored massively higher than Kincaid did last year. I look at that Bills offense and I look at their wide receivers and I go, you know what? There is still room for Kincaid to basically kind of improve his production, and he's still going to give you like a reasonable production each week. And I do like a bit of Dawson Knox as well, though, but I feel like Dawson Knox is a better blocker, so he sees less targets. Yes. I feel like with Josh Allen at quarterback, who the Bills have to play in the division, or who the teams are playing against each year, they do have a fairly soft schedule. Sorry, Jets fans, I don't know if it's going to be that much better this year with Justin Fields. I'm so sorry for saying that, and I do love my Sauce Gardner and all that too. I look at them, the Dolphins, they have constructed a defence that seems to be made out of the remnants of the FC North, because I think they have Minka Fitzpatrick. They just picked up one of my favourite Bengals of all time, Hilton, but Hilton was starting to fall off the cliff last year. Like, he was part of that problematic Bengals defence, and he looked a shadow of himself. He was no longer as assertive. He seemed to be second guessing, and I think it was partly because the guy might be beginning to lose a yard of pace, kind of thing. So anyway, I just look at Buffalo and I go, you know what? Kincaid, he's a big guy, he's a big body, he's a big target. I think that, this year he should be a staple in your team, and he's well worth his ADP, or even reaching on him a little bit. So if you can't get Kittle, if you can't get McBride, and you can't get Brock Bowers, if you're still floating around later on looking for a tight end, you can do far worse.
My fantasy of last year would disagree. Right. Right. Well, do you know, right, Dan, I'm going to keep you to the end, because you've actually got, of our three staple tight ends, you've actually got the most interesting one. My staple tight end is tight end 10 off the board. I think he's actually just incredible value for where he goes. It is my only homer pick, actually, of this whole episode. It is David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. He's just a fantastic tight end option. The only reason that he finished as low as tight end 11 last year was because he missed 6 games. Because he then had to start turning up to games in a mask, because he's so hard. Because he blew an egg up or something in his face. I can't remember what he did. It was some comedy injury, right enough. But yeah, so now when he's on the board, when he's on the field, he's shown this he's incredible. He had his breakout year in 2023. Yes, I know the Browns quarterback room is an absolute tire fire. No one has to tell me. But receiving tight ends are somebody who tends to be bad QB friendly. So they tend to be quite a safe option, particularly if we wind up with Dylan Gabriel or Shadeur are playing and they're rookies. You tend to find they target the tight ends in short routes, which would boost David Njoku. Right, off him, because he's actually, his staple tight ends go, he's quite dull. Because he's kind of always in the middle of the tight end rankings. On to yours, Dan, because yours makes sense, but I disagree with you in a good way. On you go.
If someone who plays against him in his division, what's the chances of that?
Do you know what? It's actually... On you go. I'll come to my disagreement later.
The reason why I decided to pick this guy is not yours as a good tight end, but it's also someone who, if you're new in fantasy and you're not sure where you go, he's not a name you're going to look at because his name's never in the headlines. You wouldn't know who he was unless you kind of really knew what you're talking about the NFL. So I've just done this fantasy school for people that are maybe new to this to fantasy. Someone who I think, if you can get him the position where was I guess looked at that a second ago, the middle of the 7th is Jonnu Smith. I think he would be a great pickup at that point in the draft. He last year was the top receiver for the Dolphins. He had 88 catches. He had more catches than any of the wide receivers. He's moving across to the Steelers this season, where I think he will do well under the offence. We mentioned already that Steelers offence is serviceable. Aaron Rodgers will use his tight end. He will use him. And I think Jonnu Smith at that point in the draft is a great pickup. And between my sleeper and my staple, I couldn't decide which one to put where. I think both of them would fit into one of them. I went with Jonathan Smith as a staple just because I think if you need a steady tight end that's going to get you points without being one of those elite Brock Bowers, Trey McBride type players, and they found to pick up Jonathan Smith, I think, is a great pickup.
Now, my only worry, because I agree with Oz, Jonathan Smith's great, and last year in Miami was fantastic. He finishes tight end 4. My only worry is that Arthur Smith loves him. That shouldn't be a problem. That shouldn't be a bad thing. Freiermuth is not disappearing. And I think this is going to be a situation where the Steelers' tight end room, as a unit, I have really high expectations of next year. I actually think as a receiving group, they are going to do really well. I think because it's like the Green Bay wide receiver room all over again. I think they're going to cannibalize each other. I think you're going to be finishing your year disappointed that you had one of them and you couldn't play them both at the same time, because I think together they'll put up great scores. I think individually they're going to eat each other, and I think it's going to suck really badly for them. But it's such a shame. He's such a talent.
Yeah, Brian, on that, like when I was looking at my, who am I picking as a staple, I did consider saying Tucker Kraft, but I faded him in part due to the Green Bay Packers receiving room. I do worry about the Steelers in terms of, for exactly what you said. It reminds me too much of when the Pats brought in Hunter Henry and I forgot his name. I can see his face. They had two really good tight after Gronk left.
Mike
they had those two really good. Sorry, who was it?
Mike Gesicki, no.
Before Gesicki, they had two really good receivers, tight end. They used them both as blockers more than anything because it was just shore up the line. And I worry that what's going to happen is with Aaron Rodgers, sure, he might throw to them sometimes, but I sort of see both Muth and Jono Smith being used to block a little bit more, just to kind of give them more time to get it to DK Metcalf and whoever else kind of thing, as wide receivers. But I totally get the pick. No, Jono Smith was incredible last year.
What he did in Miami was wild. Right. Let's move into the final little section of players that we have, guys. It is our sleeper tight ends. And we were so close to going in order for this one. It's tight ends 15, 17, and 18. Dan, do you know what, Dan? You're topical. Your tight end choice here is exceptionally topical. Why don't you lead us off, sir? So you've tight end 15. You're currently picking this guy up at the very start of the 11th round in drafts, which is an incredible value for any part of the passing attack in this offense. It would be
Jake Ferguson. And I know Stu is a massive fan as well. That's another homer pick, and I think we touched on it with CD Lamb earlier on. The Cowboys' passing offense this year should be much better than it was last year, so with that coming back. But I just feel as a unit with Schottenheimer coming in, there seems to be a new emphasis on making sure that Dak's got the weapons that he needs. Jake Ferguson's obviously been there. Last year he only did just under 500 yards, not a touchdown last year. But the year before he went for nearly 900 with 8 touchdowns, which I think with fully fit Dak is what we'll see from Jake Ferguson again this year. Dak was like his tight ends. We've seen it over the last few years and the different ones he's had. I think Jake Ferguson. So where do we say he's going, Brian? Sorry, I've completely missed that there.
So he's currently going sleeper ADP is 121st pick off the board, very start of the 11th round.
If you're getting Jake Ferguson at the very start of the 11th round, then somebody else in your league's not looked at him properly, because there's no way he should be going that far. He is going to be tight end number one, and no offence, that throws to the tight end quite a bit. We mentioned CD Lamb, mentioned George Pickens. They're going to get a lot of attention on the outside. There's going to be a lot of space in the middle for Jake Ferguson to pick up, and he is an end zone threat. We didn't see much of last year because obviously the back, but he can do it. So if you're getting Jake Ferguson anywhere near the 11th round, then you've got to take him.
He's such a value pick at that point. I took completely, and he got paid today. Woo, go Jake. Yeah, he got his bag. And that makes him the best paid tight end in franchise history. For my little Jake Ferguson
competition, to be fair.
That does not mean that my stat is false. So moving this one on, Stu, I'm so happy to see this. This just makes me smile in my heart, because I know how much this player has hurt you, and you are back and you are ready to be hurt again. He is
He's-
tight end 17. You're picking him up at the start of the 12th. It is a generational talent.
I know where you're going here.
Generational.
Do you know what? That's just it, and I keep going back to the well. Maybe it's the sunk cost fallacy, and you have him in a dynasty league as well. So
Just drafted him first overall as a rookie.
you feel this pain. Well, no wonder you drafted him first overall. The hype was there. We're of course talking about Atlanta Falcons' own Kyle Pitts, and it's so bizarre to me that he's fallen so far down draft lists and draft boards now. Maybe justifiably so. He had a fairly poor last year. Like, he had not one but 2 donuts, like 0 point weeks last year, and that lost me a couple of fantasy fantasy matchups when if he just put up, I think it was 1 week where I was like, if you had just put up 1.2 points or something, I was like, just got 1 reception, I would have won, and ended up losing. And then, ended up having a rougher playoff matchup and going out in the first round. But anyway, I am ready to be hot again. All the chat about training camp, and I love training camp chat every year, is that Kyle Pitts is Michael Penix Jr.'s favourite target. He's getting the ball to him. Kyle Pitts looks amazing. He's athletic. He's looks so fast, so fit, so healthy, ready to do it. And like you say, Brian, like when in his draft year, all the chat was, this is the best tight end product to hit the draft in 30 years. It was like, this is going to be the most generational, greatest tight end that we ever see. There were Bengals fans saying, oh, you know what? If he's still on the board at 5, we should maybe take him above Chase. And I was kind of going, you know what? I was starting to buy into it. I'll admit that. And I mean, now I absolutely love Jamar Chase, but I will say that I maybe would have picked him at 105 if the choice was there. And that's why I'm not a GM. But anyway, Kyle Pitts.
That's why we only do this for fun fantasy leagues and we don't get paid many millions of dollars. Yeah, well done. You're so ready to be hurt again, mate. Well, right. As the last tight end sleeper is my choice. It's something that I actually, again, when I talk about sleepers and I talk about players who I think have got the opportunity or the potential to wildly outperform. So he's your tight end 18. He's 143rd pick. He's at the end of the 12th round. He is another AFC North name, actually, as I seem to have selected a lot of AFC North names in the show today. We have got Isaiah Likely from the Baltimore Ravens. And this is tied on 2 things. One, when Mark Andrews wasn't producing, Isaiah Likely was. We've seen, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games last year where it looked like Likely was the more prominent piece to the Ravens tight end room. And 2, it looks like Mark Andrews' decline is pretty sealed. Mark Andrews, he is just getting older, and this just comes to us all. So I really think that we are going to see the Ravens shift that offense or that tight end room more and more to focus on Likely ahead of Andrews. Andrews is a player that I wouldn't touch this year in drafts, just that his ADP I think is far too expensive for where he's going, but Likely end of the 12th round, stick him on the bench for a couple of weeks and see if he comes good. Absolutely worth the value. And we know that Lamar loves throwing his tight end. We talked about it earlier with one of the things that could stand D-Hop in good stead is how Lamar targets kind of players in the red zone. There's no reason that I can see that, what I've just grabbed actually, that all 6'4" and 245 pounds of Isaiah Likely couldn't be that red zone target for the Ravens. So yeah, he's on the board at the end of the 12th. I will be absolutely looking at grabbing him. He's one, Dan, that I know you were really interested in. Likely it was one that was in your board as well.
Yeah, I had him last year, and every year Mark Andrews was there, I picked him up just as a random tight end. I don't know if I picked him on a waiver wire or something like that, and I just happened to have him, and he went off, like you say. Just when Mark Andrews wasn't doing it, he was. And I picked him up again, and you guys were in the same fantasy league, but I'll still say it. If he's still there, kind of deeper rounds when I'm on the board, I will take him again. I think there's so much upside him. He is the future of that Ravens tight end room. And with the receivers the Ravens have got, we mentioned obviously D-Hop and Bateman, stuff like that. Zay Flowers, he's well in that of being a proper threat for that Ravens offense. He's not just a tight end. He can play. We've seen him playing in the slot as a tight end. He can play.
Yep.
He's built like a wide receiver that plays tight end. He's got the wide receiver skill set, but he plays at tight end. So 100%, I'm well on that Isaiah Likely bus.
Right.
Yeah, I'm also in agreement. I was going to say I'm also in agreement there as well, especially just for the same reasons with the Nuck, like with D-Hop kind of thing. Like I think he will be the target. Just one thing on tight ends before we move on here, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think that Mike Gesicki from the Bengals should be reclassified to be a WR instead of a tight end? Because he use him as he's only ever on the field for, he never acts as a blocker. He can't do it. He's our WR3. So to me, I kind of like because he was one guy I considered putting in as a staple or a sleeper because I do think he'll do well this year. But I went, you know what? It feels like cheating. I think he should be a wide receiver.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you could convince Joe Burrow to treat him like a wide receiver, I'll consider treating him as fantasy relevant because Joe Burrow hates tight ends. Right, okay. That does draw our rundown of your studs, staples, and sleepers at quarterback, at running back, at wide receiver, and at tight end to a close. Now, a very short bit that is worth mentioning, this is where my super sneaky extra question is going to come to you two chaps, is a flex play. We've talked about individual positional areas throughout this episode, but most rosters in fantasy feature a flex play. And this is the Fantasy Football School, so I wanted to put a wee bit in at the end about what a flex play is and what you should think about. Now, normally, your flexes are going to be wide receiver, running back, tight end. Sometimes you get a super flex, and you get to include a quarterback in there. When you are looking at who to roster in any of those spots, there's realistically two things that you should be thinking about. One, what's your league scoring? If you are PPR, 0.5 PPR, you should be looking at a wide receiver. At the end of the day, they're going to see more receptions unless you happen to have Primo Austin Eckler kicking about at running back who just hoovers up catches. You always want to be thinking about your tiers as the second thing. If you can get somebody that's a stud and is a flex and not a staple, you're probably going to win that week. And right, well, I said two things, but there's three. If it's super flex, play a quarterback. Because that's just an advantage. Now, my question to you two, to sign us off, thinking about any of the players that have been mentioned tonight who are not studs. So no, you cannot say, I want CeeDee Lamb in my flex. Who would be your perfect flex play? So you think about the leagues that we play in. Now, this is great because I'll talk for 30 seconds and let these two think. Our leagues all tend to be full PPR, tight end premium. So you've got your wide receivers are getting a point per reception, so are your running backs. Your tight ends, they're going to get 2 points per reception. You've got your choice of all of the staples or the sleepers throughout the league. It's not super flex, though. We don't play such nonsense. Who is going to be going for your number one flex play? Do you know what, Stu? I'm going to come to you first because Dan's kind of got that facial expression on that makes him look a little bit like a loading screen. And I'm waiting for like a bit of advice to pop up under him in text. So, Stu, who would your, thinking about some of the names we've mentioned today, who would your big flex play be?
Okay, so I am actually going to probably go with and this is just because of the way I normally play fantasy. As much as I like taking risks in the draft, I'm kind of conservative in my picking. So I usually go with a running back in my flex position because I'll normally go, okay, I know that they're probably guaranteed 15 points or so. It's not like a wide receiver. Sure, they might blow up and get 30 points in a week, but they might also put up 5. So I would rather bank the 15. So I'm going to go with Javonte Williams because I know I'm getting him late in the draft. So I will have him available on my roster. And I know that I can probably put him into my flex spot because I've got him late on.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I like that. I like that a lot. Dan, who are you going to go for as your flex play?
Right, out of all the players I've picked tonight,
you can pick somebody someone else picked if you want. You could steal someone out from under me.
When I do my flex, I kind of look at it in terms of like who's my starters regardless. Like who's your WR1 and 2, who's your running back, and then I tend to go with who my next best player is on my bench. So it could change week to week. So looking at matchups as well. So if I've got 2 very good tight ends, but I can only start one in my roster, then I'm going to go with whoever that is. So I kind of look at it more of who's my next best player that I haven't started. This kind of way to look at it. So if I've got, let's just say I've got Trey McBride and Isaiah Likely. Let's just say that's who I've got in my roster. And Isaiah Likely is tight end 1 at the Ravens. He goes into my flex because he's my next best player. So it changes week to week for me depending on who I'm starting. Then obviously get bye weeks and all that as well. So it's a bit of a sitting on the fence answer, but it is literally who is my next best player that's on my bench that I think will get me points, not necessarily a position.
I'll let it slide. It is a bit sitting on the fence, but I'll let it slide. Mine is where I am. I try to be completely opposite for Stu. Stu goes for safety, and he wants those guaranteed that floor level of points. I want to win my week. I want to win my matchup, and I am going to do that by having Jalen Reed in my flex. And the Green Bay Packers are going to decide he's wide receiver 1. He's going to put 45 points up, fame a flex spot, and then I'm probably still going to lose because I started somebody like Kyle Pitts at tight end who puts up -4. Right. Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much to everybody who's been listening to us. This does draw this episode of Fantasy Football School to a close. We hope that you've enjoyed listening through, talking who are the studs, who are the staples, who are the sleepers, who are the people that you should be targeting as you work your way through your fantasy drafts. Stu, once again, thank you very much for joining me tonight, mate.
No, thanks for having me on board. It's been great fun talking all things fantasy and also getting to have my little Kyle Pitts speech. I enjoyed that.
I'm ready to be hurt again. Dan, this is great. I've been in the host chair and everything. Dan's not even got to be in charge and tell me after being obnoxious.
I've had the night off.
He's just going to sit there and just listen to me make an idiot of myself. Right, thank you so much for being on with me as well, Dan. It has been fantastic. And once again, to everybody listening, thank you very much. We hope you will keep picking up things with the Tartan Touchdown, your voice in the conversation around American football. Good night.